play.
Say, kids, what time is it?
The future is coming on, it's coming on.
And here we are, coming on from Boulder Creek, California. Mrs. Future and I, Al Lundell and son McNamee.
Present and accounted for.
That's
We're
right.
not late today.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
And Bobby's in San Francisco there.
That's right. Here in the remote homeroom.
It is a little sunny, a little bit of fog, but it's a great day. Oh, yeah, today is the first day of 3 days of the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas.
Ooh, right.
the big Bitcoin conference.
When you were
That's right,
talking
you
about
were-
last week. Uh-huh.
You were thinking of going, right? One point.
I was, but then it would have been crazy. And it's better to watch it remotely because then you can make some trades.
Oh, yeah.
instead
If
of
you're
running-
down at the convention center, you do not have control of your internet, man. They can shut everything down.
Yeah, controlling your wallets and moving stuff from your wallet out. It's better at home when you're relaxed because then you don't make a mistake.
Do they have any good reporting from the conference? There's any live streams or news articles coming out?
Bitcoin Magazine. There's a live stream going on right now
On YouTube?
On YouTube, yeah, Bitcoin Magazine.
Okay. Have you been watching that?
You know, I just woke up, so
Not today.
I'm going to watch it after the show. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot going on. There's the Google I/O conference that's been happening, and Apple's coming up next week. So all the tech giants are getting ready to announce their latest stuff.
Yeah. What's interesting is they're using AI, combining AI with cryptocurrency and the blockchain and smart contracts. It's just going wild out there is what you can do with AI. Just applied to any field.
Bitcoin Magazine. Michael Saylor, Bitcoin for Corporations 2025 keynote speech. Bitcoin for corporations seems to be a big topic. That's making it mainstream pretty fast that way.
A lot of these corporations, you know, on the S&P 500, they're starting to lose money. And the only way that they can compete with other corporations is they have a Bitcoin reserve because Bitcoin has been going up. There's nothing in the stock market that increased in value as much as Bitcoin has over these past almost 15 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of unbeatable. So in order to compete, they have to have some kind of a Bitcoin reserve.
So it only makes sense that they would be involved at this point.
Yeah. But now what happened last week in Saudi Arabia, countries like Dubai and UAE and Saudi Arabia, they've bought tremendous amounts of Bitcoin as reserves. They're also buying AI, NVIDIA supercomputers to actually use AI. And they're combining that with Bitcoin. Actually, they're buying a lot of stablecoin now that the laws are changed in the United States.
Okay, so stablecoin, Bitcoin. Now is the time to play with Bitcoin more than ever? What do you say?
Well, this is not financial advice.
No. This is, just tell us what you do, Bobby. I don't care about financial advice. I care about what you do.
Okay, so what I do is...
What do you do exactly?
I think right now, you just want to get your feet wet. I would just say you want the top 3 coins, probably.
So now, Bitcoin's at 109. And it's only up less than 1% since the last time that it was recorded.
So it's,
That's good. That's good.
But Ethereum is going up fast. Ethereum is almost 6% increasing
today.
Right now. Today.
Yeah. That's the other one. I would say Ethereum, and the other one is XRP.
Yeah. Now, what's so great about XRP? Somebody was just asking me that the other day. Why bother?
You know, I've never bought XRP, but I'm tempted to buy it now. It's because they've been in a lawsuit. The SEC wanted to sue them for $150 million for saying that consider it as security on the security SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. And they wanted to say it's not a store of value, it's actually a security, like a stock. And they were trying to say, you know, you have to conform to those laws. But that lawsuit has been dropped. And the second thing is, with that extra money that they didn't have to lose in the lawsuit, they had to pay the lawyers a lot of money, though. But they're actually trying to buy Circle, which is a stable coin. And the other company that wanted to buy it was Coinbase. And so there's a bidding war going on right now. So Coinbase and XRP are trying to buy this stable coin, which is one of the largest stable coins out there. And because of the legislation last week that's been moving through the Senate and will have to be approved by the House, it's called the Genius Act. It's going to make it easier for banks and financial institutions to create their own stable coins. So it's kind of like in the beginning of the United States, states were allowed to create their own banks and cities create their own banks, and it was a lot easier. And there wasn't a treasury in the United States. It was kind of distributed banking. And so we're going back to that now, where the treasury and what we have, in fact, the United States government will probably have to have a Bitcoin reserve, just like they have gold reserves. They'll probably have a Bitcoin reserve. And that's why a lot of companies are doing the same thing. They're buying both gold and they're buying Bitcoin right now.
Thank you. That was very insightful.
Countries like Dubai, they are putting all of their titles of deeds of property on the XRP blockchain, which is another reason for XRP. So you won't go to your courthouse or wherever they store your deeds of title for land. It'll all be put on the blockchain now.
Oh, interesting. So it's not really quite a coin. It's more like it's a blockchain property that represents authentic records.
Yeah, and that's why
That's
Ethereum is a
interesting.
good choice, because the blockchain that Bitcoin's on, it has a smaller area of storage. You can't put a whole deed or document on it because it's a lot of data, right? But Ethereum, you could create these blockchains that can hold a lot of data like that and then stamp that on the blockchain. In the 60s and 70s, the way the communists would actually take over South American countries was to distribute the land distribution, because in South America, there would be very wealthy people that had 99% of the land, right? So they would go in, and the first thing they would do is they would go to the courthouse where all the deeds of title were, and they would just burn it down.
Oh, so create uncertainty and then you can
Right,
kind of
right.
bully your way to the top.
But if you put it on the blockchain, it's there forever. And
Wow.
it can't be burnt down.
Fascinating.
So that's where titles, these are smart contracts. This is where smart contracts will reside,
Yeah.
where it's not on a piece of paper, it's going to be on the blockchain.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey, I'm so glad you've been paying attention. It's such a obscure world for those of
it's-
us who are just planting our gardens because it's spring.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, all these new terms like strategic Bitcoin reserve, having a stockpile of Bitcoin to enhance your financial stability. Pretty amazing. And the fact that corporations and governments are doing that as well as individuals, quite amazing. And how formalization of ownership is starting to happen. Yeah, fascinating. Well, thanks for the update. So if you people want to know more right now, they can go to the live feed from the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas.
Yes. There's,
Bitcoin Conference
this guy,
2025. Yeah, thanks.
Paul Rao, this guy, he was CEO of JP Morgan. He went into the crypto realm and he coined this term, the banana zone. And when you go in through these 4 phases of cryptocurrency, when it goes into the last phase, it's this parabolic phase where it doesn't move as much sideways. It just goes straight up and in price. So
Straight up. Okay, that kind of reminds me of Ray Kurzweil and the speed of the singularity,
yeah, this is even steeper curve than that. Apparently.
except at the end, where it all is the same steepness, which is straight up.
Yeah. I do warn you, there will be a correction probably both in Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP, probably in September or October. That's what a lot of people are saying. So,
It'll
just
go
be
up, it'll go down a little, but
Yes.
overall it's a spiral up. you
Yeah.
say,
It could go down to where you start today. It should go up 2 or 3 times.
And what happens in the meantime if somebody creates the absolute perfect cryptocurrency that answers all the needs and wants of everyone? Something that we has consulted all the AIs on to design. And what if something like that happens? Wouldn't that make the existing system obsolete?
Well, that system would have to be either based on Ethereum's protocol. Ethereum is designed to create
So it's
smart
future-proof. You're
contracts.
saying Ethereum is
Yeah.
future-proof then? That this is where
Well,
it's got to
no,
go.
there's competitors out there. There's something called Solana and Sui. They're like Ethereum, and there's a lot of programmers and there's a lot of support. So those are
So
good bets too.
They're in
you
the
know?
they're in the race, but there's
Yeah.
but right now Ethereum's
Ultimately,
Well,
it comes down to how many people are using them, right? It takes a crypto community to give the tokens their value. They have to be valuable to people who are in that world.
and who declares adoption.
Yeah.
Well, it's a belief system, right?
Yeah.
It's a belief system like, okay, Bitcoin is king because there's a natural scarcity of them and eventually they'll be all gone. So scarcity creates a limited store of
Yeah,
value.
that's what bugs
right?
me a bit about Bitcoin is that it is a scarcity model.
Well,
Yeah.
you can say that, but it's a scarcity model with incentives built in for people to spend it rather than hoard it, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the dollar is a scarcity model too.
Yeah. I think the banks and the financial institutions, they've seen Ethereum for 10 years now.
Yeah.
So they feel comfortable with that. These new ones like Solano and Sui, they're different platforms that you can develop programs on and smart contracts, but they're kind of new. So that's why there's still a lot of support for, not that Ethereum is better. You can do a lot on these newer platforms, but it's just a matter of time where people will switch over to them.
Just a matter of time. Yeah. It'll be better than Betamax, VHS and Betamax. It reminds me of.
Yeah.
Bitcoin versus Betamax, huh?
Well, yeah, right.
So let's
VHS
see.
won that
What's-
race.
What do you think is the DV equivalent?
What is DT? Actually, it reminds me more a model of like a parliament where you have different parties
Sure.
all supporting
The
different
plurality of
leaders,
coins of the realm.
realms of thinking. Yeah, and lots of democracies have many choices. That's what it reminds me of.
It reminds me, of course, since I was born in Las Vegas, of every casino having their own poker chips. So,
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, that's
they
exactly
do that,
it.
don't they?
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can create your own meme coin right now.
Yeah.
And all those coins, all those meme coins, they all go down to zero
Yeah.
eventually. But for the time being, yeah, you could create your own coin.
Well, that's what makes them like Ponzi schemes. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why people
Yeah.
were so critical of the NFT coins that were created when Trump came into office, right?
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
S-
We got a comment from Greg.
Oh, Greg, he's up on Bitcoin. Let's see. What does he say? He says, you can buy Bitcoin from a standard brokerage account
As a stock at the
at
same
the
price.
same price.
Buy Bitcoin from a standard brokerage account as a stock at the same price, rather than you transfer money to a stranger and have them issue you the coin into your wallet. This way you don't have a wallet. You just have a stock on the open market. So that's another way of buying
He's saying
Bitcoin.
just put it in a brokerage account.
Yeah, you can do that too. It's probably a lot easier for most people.
Yeah, I was just talking to Katya. She's going to move her Vanguard account because there's no connection to Bitcoin or crypto in Vanguard. But if you move it to Fidelity, I believe you can buy an ETF at Fidelity or JP Morgan. You can actually have access to some kind of either ETF or directly Bitcoin. You can take your 401ks and IRAs and whatever, and you can roll them over into that if you want some Bitcoin exposure.
Do you do that yourself? Are you doing that approach?
I have very little in IRA. I just invest directly into
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Whatever savings I've got. But,
Okay. Any final thoughts on Bitcoin this week before we move on to other future news?
It's very interesting. Sweden and Czechoslovakia have enacted legislation to have Bitcoin reserves. There's states like New Hampshire, Arizona. New Hampshire is the first state in the United States to actually have a Bitcoin reserve for that state. So you're going to see other states follow up.
This is actual Bitcoins. This is not just reserve based on brokerage accounts and stock market stuff. This is
Yes,
they're actually
yeah,
buying real.
This is actually
Yeah.
states, and so eventually we will have legislation that will allow for companies to actually issue their own stable coin. There's no legislation yet that will allow Bitcoin to be completely where it should be. There's no laws controlling it right now. There should be. Also, countries that don't have a Bitcoin reserve, like Japan,
Yeah.
Japan's probably going to default on their debt.
So this could be bad for countries that don't have it.
That's right, yeah, because if you don't have it,
You don't have
they
that
do.
backup.
These countries have gold reserves, but it's not enough to default on their debts.
Yeah.
So
So it's a really a country by country, corporation by corporation choice at this point, would you say?
yes, it's all happening in the background. If you just follow some of the news, you can kind of get, or if you're on YouTube, you can follow a lot of these people that are in the crypto realm. They'll tell you what countries are doing to prepare for this. In 6 years, if we have this conversation, it'll be a completely different way of transacting with money. And
Yeah, it'll probably be way
sounds
easier
like
for
it's
one
going to
thing.
be a very distributed transfer of the debt in the world that's creating all of the financial markets and movement. And that's going to get moved from this ledger belonging to national banks and tied to treasuries is going to get moved to crypto assets that are tied to government policies. But it's going to be a whole new class of them.
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's going to be distributed ledger. Instead of the bank holding the one ledger, the one piece of paper that says, you have this amount of money in the, it's now distributed across computer systems throughout the world. And they're all recognizing that you have this amount of money in this place.
And, it's going to take away the ability to do the kind of monetary policy that the central banks have been trying to do over the last bunch of years, because it's going to put it into a real distributed marketplace. There'll be big players, there'll be whales and stuff like that, but there won't necessarily be drivers who can squeeze people out of the market.
Yes, that's why it looks like the Federal Reserve System here is definitely, they realize they're losing control of the Treasury, the United States Treasury.
Yeah.
And the Treasury is going to be diversified with Bitcoin and gold and other assets.
Right. But that is really to make it a smoother transition, because instead of there being like a predictable central bank, okay, on a single day, we're going to stop using a falling national dollar and we're going to start using a particular designated cryptocurrency. And then that would basically create a run on the banks kind of thing.
Yeah.
Instead, it's going to be death by a thousand swords. There's going to be every day, there's going to be the market telling you, oh, here's the opportunity for the currencies that are going up and here's the ones that are going down. And the sophisticated traders are going to be able to just ride those waves a little bit at a time until 20 years from now, the whole financial system looks totally different.
Yeah. And when do we get paid in Bitcoin?
Anytime you ask for it, baby.
Yeah, when will employers start saying, okay, I'm going to pay you 2 Bitcoins?
3 years ago, I was already filling out forms for a small business that's literally a payroll business that said you deposit your payroll in the currency of your domestic country into this account, and we automatically
so it's here
put it
already.
into a Bitcoin account, and when you want it back, we take it out of the Bitcoin account and you spend it in your local currency. So there are businesses that are doing
They're
that.
actually doing that. It's just going to get easier and easier to the point where it's actually normal to do that. Yeah. That's the thing, is that it's the timing of these things. When that happens, when it becomes as fluid as money, it's kind of like PayPal. PayPal got super easy and suddenly everyone started using it. They got super rich. And,
El Salvador, they don't have their peso or anything. It's all Bitcoin.
They're all Bitcoin now, yeah.
Yeah, they did that several years ago, right? Was that like 5 years ago?
Katya went down there surfing, and she was amazed because the average person is dealing with Bitcoin and they have more control because everyone becomes a banker. When you own Bitcoin, there's no intermediary like a bank.
Yeah, it's
and so you
distributed to them.
cannot borrow. It's really hard for people with very little money to borrow or control their money.
Yeah, okay. Well, we could go on forever on this time. We will. Every week I think we'll do a segment on this. But
Meanwhile,
thanks,
let's go
Bobby,
do
for
a little sponsorship, little Santa Cruz voice praise and love.
And we have a bunch more stories to share with you, and including our report on VR chat.
Yeah, so...
Right.
All right, Future Now.
All right, see you in a
We'll
minute.
be back in a few.
The Hook is California's first ever cannabis outlet. 100% locally owned and operated, we're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. We believe that everyone should have access to fairly priced cannabis, so we work hard to get it to you for 30 to 50% less than the other guys. If you're 21 or older with a valid ID, visit us in Capitola or in Watsonville today. We're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. Check out our website, hookoutlet.com, for deals and stay groovy.
For about $1 a day, you can have all the major appliances and systems in your home guaranteed fixed or replaced. Jeff, a customer, wrote, "My air conditioner broke and I got a new one at no out-of-pocket cost." Call now. If the lines are busy, please call back.
Call the Home Warranty Hotline now at 800-528-1660. 800-528-1660. 800-528-1660.
About that first impression. Hi, this is Bettina McBee from Bettina's Buzz on SantaCruzVoice.com. And that first impression is my business card created by Dynamic Press. It is my favorite business card. It gets everybody's attention right away. If you want to make a good first impression, get your business cards and any printed media at Dynamic Press. And tell Angelo Bettina sent you.
Attention content producers. You can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Easily rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at can't say no rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
One more comment before we leave the realm of crypto. Greg did want to point out that with standard brokerage account, there's no risk of losing your Bitcoin from an e-wallet or a strange online account that is not under your control. All the risk is assumed by the market.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying having a bank account is better than having a wallet.
Yeah.
Well,
What they say is if you let someone else own or actually have the keys to your wallet or your Bitcoin, wherever, they have control and you don't.
Well, custodians get to benefit every time the assets are traded. And so anybody who owns their own wallet is their own custodian. And anybody who has a brokerage account is getting the security of the brokerage, making sure that it doesn't get ripped off, but it also turns over the benefits that you could make if you were smart enough to handle your own trades. So
Yeah. And these crypto exchanges, a lot of them have gone belly up overnight. So there is a risk. Even brokerages can do that too.
well, there's such a thing as a run on the bank, right?
Yes,
There's a run on the
exactly.
brokerage. Everybody with crypto is like, oh, I want to buy my Bitcoin now. And then there go all the reserves, right?
So it's this idea that you become your own banker. You become your own bank, actually. So if you get a wallet, a hardware wallet, then you
yeah,
become
but you
the
have
bank.
to trust that
You
the
are the
person who's giving you a deposit is legit. That's what Greg is pointing out. He's saying that when you
Oh.
have your own wallet,
the risk is
then
yours.
it's one-to-one. Whoever's giving you the transaction, you have to do all the screening.
Otherwise, they'll take on some of the risk. Of course, that's the whole idea of insurance companies, too, to have others take on your risk.
Yeah.
But we'd have
In the world of money.
Yes. Anyway, let's go on to something else for a
Yeah,
while.
how about gold, Al? How about
Gold,
Earth's
yeah,
core?
yeah, we have
doing
some gold
well.
stuff. Also, I had promised last week about a hidden source of clean energy that could power the Earth for 170,000 years. I
Okay.
did promise that.
Okay.
Okay, I can just
Yes.
mention that before we move on to
Okay.
gold.
Clean energy
and
before
money
gold.
again.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was trying to be
make the
consistent.
connections. Sure, of course.
Yeah, but I'm
All
happy
makes
to
sense.
skip.
No, we'll
over
come
and
back to the gold.
Go
We'll come
straight
back to the
to
gold. That's important.
climate issues.
I'm into gold.
Clean
A
energy.
little bit.
It's all related.
It is. Okay, well, here's the thing. It's just the opposite of gold in the sense that what we have an abundance of in reservoirs of clean energy is hydrogen. Hydrogen.
The most common element in the entire universe.
In the Earth's crust. Yeah, it could accelerate energy transition away from all existing forms. Yeah, the recent breakthroughs suggest that hydrogen reserves are buried in countless locations around the planet. There's an abundance of hydrogen and in at least 30 U.S. states. How about that? That's way more abundant than oil.
How about the ocean?
Yeah, never mind the H2O, right? In the ocean, right? Exactly. We've only had a real piecemeal understanding of how large these hydrogen accumulations are in the crust. And now we're starting to get a map of them and to see where they are and how we might be able to tap into them. The Earth's crust has produced enough hydrogen over the last billion years to meet our current energy needs for 170,000 years. That's how much hydrogen there is in the crust. And that's the top part of the Earth. What's unclear is how much of that could be easily accessed. That's the next step in researching this whole field of hydrogen energy.
It seems like it's pretty hard to move hydrogen around unless it's part of another molecule like water.
Yeah. Is it locked up in the rocks? Where is it?
Well, it's a good question. I'll tell you how it works.
He's got some canned hydrogen, I guess.
Canned hydrogen, yeah. They require 3 elements to form the natural hydrogen reserves: a source of hydrogen, a reservoir of rocks, and natural seals that trap the gas underground. Apparently, our geologists have found that there are a dozen natural processes that create hydrogen in the mantle. The simplest being a chemical reaction that splits water, hydrogen, water, hydrolysis. Any type of rock that hosts at least one of these processes is a potential hydrogen source. There's a lot of interest in Kansas, especially. There's something called the Mid-Continental Rift, and this rift was formed about 1 billion years ago, and it has a lot of rocks, mostly basalts, that react with water to form hydrogen. So our geologists are on a search for geological structures that may have trapped and accumulated the hydrogen generated.
So are they talking about mining hydrogen?
Accessing these
Doesn't that sound insane?
Caches of hydrogen. Yeah.
We're just going to start sifting through all the crust on the planet to get the very lightest element up from the deep. I don't know. Somehow sounds a little crazy to me.
What? You don't think that tectonic stress and high heat flow might be a good way of getting it out?
I'm not a geologist. No? I'm really just a doofus as far as this goes. But
it does tie in with your gold story.
Oh, it does?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
How? Yeah. How, you might ask?
I ask.
Yeah.
How?
Well, it has to do with the fact that 99% of the gold on this planet is actually located towards the core of the planet, not near the surface, like where we live.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. So the gold and the hydrogen are all hanging out, like buried deep, so that's hard for us to get to them, huh?
That's right. The Earth holds a vast reservoir. You know how much gold there is in the core of this planet? Do you have any idea?
$25.
There's enough gold in this planet to cover all of the Earth's land in gold 20 inches thick.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
50 centimeters.
I wonder if it would be good if we could ice skate on it or something. I mean, if we had 20 inches of gold everywhere on the land, does that include the bottom of the ocean, or is that just the parts above the ocean?
Towards the core, way below the ocean.
It means like if we took the middle of the Earth and just splotched it all around the outer surface beneath the atmosphere.
It sounds like the movie Goldfinger.
You think?
The James Bond movie.
Yeah, how so, Bobby? Exactly does that connect to Goldfinger? The fact that you can coat somebody in gold?
Yeah, or coat the Earth in gold.
Coat the Earth in gold, right. The planet. Mother Gaia covered in gold. Well, that is pretty amount of gold. Apparently, it's not the only expensive metal there. Platinum is in great abundance as well.
Yeah, we need platinum for catalytic converters and things like that. It's very useful, actually.
It is, and it's another heavy element. The heavy elements sank down through the planet's mushy interior in its early days. They ended up being sequestered in what we call a differentiated core. For some reason, the geologists call this process iron catastrophe. We also had gold being delivered along with other heavy elements from the asteroids as well, from meteors hitting the planet. However, these massive amounts of gold are in the interior of our planet, and they change the way that we think about gold and its value if we had access to it.
Yeah.
But if we did, we'd probably use it for wires and all kinds of things.
It's
Well,
pretty
it's
soft.
a
I don't know.
better conductor than copper, and it doesn't oxidize. So that's why you have gold-plated connectors and contacts, is because copper will tarnish and it creates resistance when it oxidizes. So, but gold, the connector is always shiny, and there's no oxidation and there's no resistance. So it's very good as a conductor. It's kind of heavy though.
If it's really cheap, would there be any more efficiency, you think, to motors that were wound in coils of gold instead of copper? The electric motors, would they be more efficient?
Yeah, if you could afford that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
But I think what's eventually going to happen is they're going to make a room temperature superconductor. And so it will actually superconduct even better than gold at room temperature. And then the whole world would change. We would have so much abundance of energy because none of it would dissipate through the power lines. Motors would actually be, the smoke alarm is on in the kitchen here. It just went
Whoa.
off.
Having some smoking hot ideas here, huh?
Yeah, but you just had that one thing, that superconductive room temperature thing. Pons and Fleischmann originally in the 80s when they were trying to explore that.
Cold fusion.
Yeah,
you're
right.
talking
The
about.
whole cold fusion.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea too. In a few years, we'll have an abundance of energy, abundance of things, abundance of wealth, and we just have to figure out how to distribute it evenly throughout the planet.
What we need to do is realize that everything we believe is just backwards, and look out at the universe and notice how the natural state of all that is so much abundance that you can't possibly include it all, so that you just have to choose your own steps and do what you're here to do.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of abundance. Nature of abundance is you have everything you need. All you have to do is put yourself out there for it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the AIs don't like my idea of a gold-wired generator. They said, actually, copper is a better conductor of electricity than gold.
Uh-oh.
I didn't know
The
that.
AIs are contradicting you, Bobby.
Yeah, I never heard that. That's why they put silver in computer systems, because it conducts better than copper. Copper can generate heat. I'm not sure gold generates heat.
Okay, but maybe it should be a silver-wired generator. Yes, silver wire generators would work, and they'd be more efficient than copper wire generators. However, because they're so freaking expensive, you're not going to do it.
But gold, how does gold compare to silver as a conductor?
It's better. Silver is better conductor than gold.
Seriously? I was always heard. But silver does tarnish, though. So that's why they don't put silver coating on connectors.
Better conductor.
They put gold connectors.
Gold or copper. Let's see. Let's just clear this up once and for all.
Oh, by the way, the better buy is silver right now than gold.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
because the ratio traditionally for gold and silver, right now gold is outpacing silver, but silver, the ratio is to be 1-to-5. It needs to catch up, so there's a lot where silver, and silver is useful too.
In the periodic table, copper, the elemental weight is 29. And it is in the same column as silver, which has the weight of 47, which is in the same column as gold, which has an elemental weight of 79. So they all have the same electrical valence conductivity, but copper's the lightest, silver's the medium, and gold is the heaviest.
Silver is a better conductor of electricity.
That makes sense. Wow. That's interesting. They're all lined up vertically on the periodic table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and silver is a better conductor of electricity, better than gold and copper. The highest electrical conductivity of all metals, silver. Well, copper is really good. Silver outperforms it. Gold is still good, but is lower conductivity than both silver and copper, and that's confirmed in another search. The gold has been detected through materials coming from volcanoes because volcanic eruptions can bring some of this gold to the surface. I guess if you wanted to go after it, You design a ship that could cruise through the molten lava network, the rivers of the Gaia, which would be
Made of lead.
yeah, hot lead, no hot basalt probably.
Right. Yeah, I think your drill bit would melt before.
I know.
before it
We
got
need some
to
kind
the
of
gold.
protection against this heat, man. It keeps us from getting there. I mean, it's harder than outer space to go into the Earth. Holy moly.
And the pressure, wow.
Oh, yeah. Pressure is beyond. I mean,
Yeah.
you think at the bottom of the ocean, it requires a thick hull. What do you think inside magma, miles below the Earth, would be like?
I think we need some
I think it's a
breakthroughs in
better-
our science. I think we need to understand physics better than we do.
I think these asteroids in the asteroid belt,
Yeah.
obviously there was, well, to me, there was a kind of a medium-sized planet, probably larger than the Earth or Mars, smaller than Neptune. But in that realm, and it exploded, and you have this asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter.
The old
And the-
Maldek hypothesis.
Yes. And then they've discovered planets, well, asteroids that have high amounts of platinum and gold and silver. I mean, they're just, it must have been the core of this planet that just got blown up. And it's just sitting out there and it's cold. It's frozen out there. And all we have to do is just put some kind of a ship on there and mine it and bring it back. Then the price of gold would drop as soon as they brought it back here to the Earth.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's an abundance economy, once again, where we have a lot of something that was very scarce. And actually, it can be really good for society if the fact that these scarce materials are really useful, like hydrogen is. If silver and gold were readily available, well, of course we would use those things for making our lives better. And not just because they're pretty and shiny, but because of their properties.
I believe you.
So thanks. Richard sent me a thing from dexmat.com about advanced materials for electric motors and generator windings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send that to you.
Yeah, they were designing these superconductors that were higher temperature superconductors so you could use nitrogen but they're made of ceramics, like
Ceramics, yeah.
they were yttrium and whatever, but it's kind of hard to make them mold into wires and coil them up is the problem. So that's why we're looking for something that can wind a motor that would be a superconductor at room temperature. This motor, if you could get it to work at room temperature, what would happen with the superconductor? It would be a perpetual motion machine. It would just keep on spinning. All you need is just an initial kick of electrons, and the motor would continually spin if it had a superconductor coil winding.
Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would give another solution to our energy crisis.
Yeah, so all these trains, streetcars that are electric, automobiles, EV, you wouldn't need a battery per se. You could just have the electric motor with a superconductor. It would have a very small battery just to get it moving.
Yeah, that would change everything.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, our day-to-day stuff is the important materials are aluminum, gold and silver, carbon nanotubes. They have a lot of properties that could be used in electric motors. And the shape of the wire seems to be an important role as well. And hybrid wires. Yeah.
Yeah, the carbon nanotubes, they want to go straight.
Oh, that's the ones that have a hard time winding.
Winding it around.
There's something called galvorn, superior to copper. I guess that's the carbon nanotubes. Galvorn is the latest version of that stuff.
What is it made of?
20% that of copper. I guess, but it's a carbon nanotube. It works at higher frequencies, according to the data here. It maintains its electrical conductivities at higher frequencies. And while copper reduces electrical performance at higher frequency operations. And the flexibility is superior to copper. These fibers are more comparable to that of a textile thread, which can survive millions of flex cycles. They're thinking that it packs a lot of efficiency into such uses as motor windings. It's the lightest option for magnet wires. 9 times lighter than copper, 3 times lighter than aluminum. So that's the advantage of galvorn CNTs.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, these motors are just going to get more and more efficient as time goes on. Hey, what do you got, Mrs. Future?
No, I'm just looking
2
at
minutes.
the clock. We're
2
getting
minutes.
towards the top of the hour, as we say.
That's true. True. And we got so much more to cover. So much more interesting stuff.
I know. That's why I thought I'd give you a little tickle.
Okay, feel free to jump over and tickle me if you want.
Okay, you got it. Anytime, right now.
Ooh, all right. That's a hidden source of energy right there.
I can tell you're accelerated.
All right. Quick news. Y Combinator startup Firecrawl is going to pay $1 million to hire 3 AI agents as employees.
Oh boy, there you go. Human jobs going to AIs.
That's right. AI agents only. $1 million for 3. Well, I guess that's pretty good salary.
Well, I guess
Make
if
'em
they're
work
that
24/7
smart.
time.
I don't know that the AIs are that smart. That's a lot of money for some fairly average work.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the AIs are as smart as the humans that are asking them questions.
Well, they want to make it to do the mundane, boring stuff. Like their AI's job is it's a data scraper. It's got to scrape data constantly from websites and LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
That could be boring.
Yeah, very
most
boring
people.
for humans.
All right.
Who wants to be a data scraper? Come on.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a human job at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So scraping data.
The AI won't complain, though. It'll
That's
do it
true.
joyously.
Yeah. Well, who's going to get the money? That's what I want to know.
Well,
if they're
it's gonna go-
hiring AIs, man,
Yeah.
who's getting paid?
Well, it's got to be able to chat up other people's chatbots to scrape data from them.
Well, I think it's what I said is that whoever owns the AIs is getting the AI's salary. So it's the rise of the leisure class.
The ownership is key once again.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I think
Who knows?
is
Maybe
going on.
they're the first ones that'll make money is the scrape bots.
The scrape bots are making money for their owners. Think of them as
Yeah.
like taxis, and the people who own the taxis are collecting the rent.
People do on a day-to-day basis.
That's right. That's what's going to drive everybody getting their own robots is being able to hire them out, right?
Right,
We're all
right.
going to have our own little robo income generators.
Next year, it won't cost that much as it costs right now. But, next year it'll probably cost 1/10 the price it does this year.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Everything's going to cost less, but of course, money will buy less too. So, anyway, we'll be right back. Future Now.
Okay, welcome back to the show.
Okay, we're back.
We're back. Did you know that your backyard hummingbird feeder is changing the shape of hummingbird beaks?
Really?
Yeah. A new study suggests that the Anna's hummingbirds in the western United States are not only keeping up with human influence on their habitat, they're actually thriving.
Yeah.
Those red and clear plastic hummingbird homemade sugar water
hummingbird feeders that everybody likes to fill with sugar water.
Basically, the bills get longer from using these feeders, and they become more slender. That helps them have a larger tongue inside that can get more nectar from the feeder at a time.
I see. Less beak, more tongue, huh?
Yeah.
Sounds like an evolutionary adaptation
It's been
for
a study.
sure.
It's since 2019, 16 collaborators, 12 institutions, and they found that the beaks of males grew pointier over time.
Nothing new about that.
That allows them to fight off competing males at the feeders.
Okay.
Also, the hummingbirds moved further north, showing up in much cooler climates than what they were before. Where now they're chasing away other birds at northern climate bird feeders as well.
Well, we sure have more birds in the last 2 years than we had any time before that.
Yeah.
I
they
thought
seem to
that's
be-
just because Wayne was filling up more feeders. We had more food for them, so more of them could hang out. More options so that the bully birds, they couldn't defend all the territory. When there's 4 feeders, they can only pick one. Which is good for the birds that aren't bullies. The ones that just like to sit around the feeder and chat with each other.
Right, yeah. Friendly ones. Well, the Anna's hummingbirds date back to the 1800s, well before we started having outdoor feeders for them. Our scientists have been able to measure their beaks for that amount of time, since the 1800s.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And the feeders have been the single contribution to an effect that humans have on them. The science is rather surprised that they changed as quickly as they did. It's an example of how we play a role in changing the organisms around us, I think, is the
Well, we are
lesson
supposed to
there.
be stewards of life.
Right.
That's nothing new. It's just many humans have forgotten.
I'm going to have to bring over some wild fuchsia that is in our backyard. It's crazy. It's kind of like a vine that likes to grow down the hill.
Oh,
So
nice.
I planted some in the park behind me, and it's starting to grow down the hill into back down.
Awesome.
But anyway, the hummingbirds love this wild fuchsia.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
there used to be another fuchsia. Fuchsias were very common in San Francisco, but then there was this fungus that got rid of them. But these wild fuchsias are immune to that. And the hummingbirds, they're very territorial. There would be one hummingbird for every group of fuchsias. That was their feeding ground, and they would attack other hummingbirds. I see these aerial combats happening in the backyard all the time
those are
over
fun, aren't they?
territory. But there's other, honeysuckle is another one that hummingbirds like. So yeah, if you start planting these things where you're at, you won't believe how many hummingbirds will come around. It's crazy. And the wild fuchsia is just, it's almost a weed. It's just
Great.
it-
Sounds
it
good.
will-
Let's have some.
it'll make
I'd
some
love to have
bushes.
wild fuchsia bushes around here.
Yeah, and then you don't have to fill up the feeder. The fuchsias, they seem to flower all year round.
Nice.
So
That's great. Well, I'm all in favor of more hummingbirds.
yeah,
Well,
they're very
the-
cool. And the color that you see, they're not pigment. If you look at a hummingbird different times of the day, it's actually the refraction. It's like when you have a prism and it breaks up the light in different colors.
Yeah, yeah.
What you're seeing is these feathers are actually clear, and because of the angle of the light, you're seeing these blues and purples and iridescent colors. It's actually the refraction of the light as opposed to actually the color of the light itself.
Ah, that's why it
oh.
looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luminescent.
Remarkable.
Yes.
Well, that reminds me, there is another interesting piece this week about how a new kind of contact lens gives you a kind of supervision where you can see in the dark even with your eyes closed. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's kind of how the VR goggles work. The Quest 3, if you step out of the boundary, your
Yeah,
eyes are closed, but you
Yeah,
can
we need
still
to talk
look
about
around
that.
you.
That was pretty cool. We played a lot with our Quests yesterday. We
Yes,
had a major
yes.
tour.
Thank you, some
yeah.
of our VR buddies. We
Yeah.
had a great tour last night. Thank you so much,
Oh, yes.
Dr.
The
Paradise.
VR chat. I recommend checking out VR chat. We had a lot of fun in VR chat. We'll go visit Greg and Richard in there
That's
too.
right.
you
We
guys?
got invited to. Greg told us about some fun things that we could tune into.
And choosing your avatars and knowing what to look at and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's the next big citadel is to get some avatars that we're proud of. So next time we tune in, that's my assignment.
Right. And thanks, Richard. He just sent me a link to the Big Bear Bald Eagle Live Nest
Ooh.
Cam 1.
Oh, how fun.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, you can watch
Wow.
the Eagles live. Looks like Tahoe or something.
Yeah. I wonder, is that a
Big Bear Valley.
parent eagle or is
Really.
that still a fledgling? Is that an eagle who's left the nest, or is that somebody who's taking care of eggs?
I think
or
it looks
what?
like the baby's just growing up.
Yeah, the babies are growing up. Oh
Yeah,
boy!
getting ready to fly around.
Thank you, Richard. Wonderful. We
Very
love
cool.
those live nature cams.
Big bald eagle.
Yeah, beautiful.
They have a condor one here somewhere in California. You could see the baby condors.
Yeah, it's right up there with the rattlesnake cams that we had last week. Were those? What?
I'd
Pick
rather
your
look
creature.
at condors, though.
Pick your creature. What do you like to watch? So supervision.
This supervision reminds me, there was this book by Colonel Philip Corso, Day After Roswell, and he describes how these night vision goggles were developed in the 60s in Vietnam. He said that he was responsible for, he had a drawer full of alien
Artifacts. That's right. He got the
And it was-
artifacts from the crash at Roswell, and he had to distribute them into R&D programs.
Right. I don't know if you remember, but one of them, they found it on an alien. It was a contact lens. And when they took out the contact lens of this alien, they could see in the evening, in the darkness.
You mean it worked with human vision?
Yes. And that's where the idea of making these night vision goggles for Vietnam came about. That's what he claims.
Huh. He said that fiber optics were implanted into our culture, or the idea of integrated circuits even.
Yeah,
at the
but why
origins
is
of
this
the Roswell
better?
crash.
We have eyelids for a reason.
Yeah.
Are these people going to get these contact lenses and just never sleep?
No, you understand that there's something about being able to see infrared wavelengths that is different than normal light. Apparently,
sure, it extends your range of
infrared
vision.
Wavelengths flicker. compared to regular light.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you can see them with your eyes closed, because you see the flickering.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you close your eyes and look up at the sun or a light bulb and then move your hands with your fingers back and forth really fast right in front of your eyes with your eyes closed, and you'll see like a flickering.
Yeah.
It works with the
frame rate is
computer
different.
monitors too.
Yeah. You try it with your computer monitors.
Well, and we used to use video cameras on our computer monitors, and it would be this band cycling through that was just out of phase.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work on these contact lenses for night vision? It must convert the infrared light into a visible red
Well, they
light.
don't.
Here's a little
typically-
sub-headline. Scientists hijack the human
typically-
eye to get a brand new color. It's called OLO.
That's another article
Oh, sorry.
related.
It made sense to me.
Yeah, that's probably why I put it there. This is an association. Well, typically the night goggles needed an energy source, and it made them more bulky. And infrared goggles are also unable to precisely distinguish light across the infrared range, especially at longer wavelengths. So the new lenses, to create them, they embedded nanoparticles inside flexible, non-toxic polymers that are typically used in soft contact lenses. And these nanoparticles are sodium gadolinium fluoride embedded with luminescent yttrium. Erbium and gold absorb near-infrared photons in the 800 to 1600 nanometer wavelength range before emitting them as visible light. And that's where we see them in 380 to 750 nanometers. So it moves it down in the range to where we can see these things. And they tried them out first in mice, believe it or not. So they had mice with these new lenses on. And you know how they tested to see if they could see or not, the mice?
No.
Well, the mice favored dark boxes over ones that were illuminated by infrared light.
Oh.
And those without the lenses showed no preference. See, mice like dark environments. They prefer to go where it's dark. So if they're wearing the lenses and it's all lit up, I don't want to go there. So the pupils of the lens-wearing mice constricted in the presence of infrared light sources. Their brain scans showed that their visual processing centers were firing, so they avoided those lit-up areas. That's called crepuscular. Creatures that stick to dark environments to evade predators at night.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Crepusculars. That's a good word. Crepuscular.
So without the lenses, the subject could not see anything in the infrared range, but with them on, they could clearly see the flickering of infrared light. Then people close their eyes, they'd be able to see this flickering light even better because near infrared penetrates the eyelid more effectively than visible light.
So you can see with your eyes closed, in other words.
Yeah. And so there's less interference from visible light with your eyes closed.
Wow.
Well, it's a cyber eye for the techno guy.
Well, it's not really ready for prime time yet.
Yeah, but it is super contact lenses for future people who want to augment their visual capacity.
Yeah, well, they're
You
working
can
on it.
Make
They're
your
working on it.
eyes work more like telescopes.
Well, currently they only pick up light projected from LED sources, which have to be incredibly bright. So the scientists need to boost the lens's sensitivity to pick up light in lower intensities. Right now they have to keep them close to the retina. They're working on putting it into a glass system for further away from your eye, and that will allow you to look at infrared in higher resolutions. There's the improvements there.
It seems like you could take your dwarf telescope and if you had a big one of these, you can put it on as a filter on the front end, and all of a sudden it would do super infrared on your telescope. Or binoculars.
Yeah, there you go. We combine it with our existing technology in new ways. Yeah, good idea.
Or you go up in space and take the Hubble telescope and just put this on the Hubble. And then it would be like the James Webb in the infrared.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Hubble because they're discovering new stuff with the Hubble all the time now.
Really? With the old one?
Yeah, there's a new story on the Hubble this week. It's just remarkable how fast it's coming out. Yeah, it should be here. Huh.
The Hubble one?
Yeah, the Hubble one. Genetically modified spider.
Is there new uses for the Hubble?
Supervision. Yeah, it's been able to look at the early universe. What I remember about the discovery is that one of the big mysteries is how the universe went from a bunch of hydrogen molecules just floating around, turning into stars and black holes. How did it start to move from one state to another?
That's one of the big questions.
Yeah.
How did the Big Bang begin?
Well, after the Big Bang, how did it go from formless fog, basically, into planets and solar systems and black holes and galaxies, the whole thing? How did it all start to do that? And it has to do with the ionizing radiation turning the hydrogen into something more dynamic.
An
Dynamic
ionized
molecule.
form of hydrogen.
Yeah.
Spinning in a
And
particular
apparently
direction.
They said, how did that happen? Well, they don't know how it originally happened, but they do know that it was speeded up dramatically by clusters of white dwarfs. That white dwarfs put out a huge amount of ionizing radiation that transformed the early mist of hydrogen into more complex materials. So white dwarfs played a big role in the early universe. That was just something recently.
Well, that's interesting because when you ionize, just think of it, if it's hydrogen or helium, when you ionize it, you take the electrons that are spinning around the nucleus and you strip them off, and it turns into this kind of like plasma of just nucleuses. Then it's highly
that's one kind of
radioactive.
ionization, because you also have positive. You can have positive or negative ionization at that level.
Right. So the electrons are negatively charged and the nucleus is positively charged. They have protons and neutrons, and the neutrons are neutral, but the protons are positive. And when you knock off the electron, all of a sudden you have a free electron that's negative ion, negatively charged, or you can have a molecule that has an extra electron and it's negatively charged. But then if you strip off just one electron, then it becomes positively charged, this molecule. But if you strip them all off, it turns into a plasma where it's just, the nucleus is called alpha particles. And you just have a bunch of alpha particles streaming. And that is a form of ionizing radiation.
Very important stuff. It was not just dwarf stars, but there were entire dwarf galaxies. Dwarf galaxies. Minuscule compared to Milky Way. They were extremely efficient galaxies at generating ionizing radiation. And so the James Webb Telescope spectroscopy looked at dwarf galaxies that were clustered around an area called Abell 2744. And they found that these galaxies are not only more abundant, outnumbering larger galaxies by 100 to 1, but emitted 4 times more ionizing radiation collectively. Enough energy to get the job done to create more complex, higher mass galaxies.
So they're smaller and denser, and the energy's all closer together, and therefore they're hotter. They're making stuff faster.
In the very beginning, it was just hydrogen, and then it turned into helium. There was fusion. And then you had to collect all these into huge stars, and then they would have to be a supernova, where then you ionize all that material. Like you strip off all the electrons, and you got a whole bunch of these nucleuses of alpha particles, and it creates more denser materials, for instance, carbon and iron and things like that. So from these supernovas of these collisions.
That's right, yeah. Exciting stuff. Early universe clues coming in from James Webb, and the ionizing radiation, how important that is for understanding. I want to play a Larry and Mary piece on something you've never heard of before. We put our Larry and Mary AIs to work on trying to understand the physics of second sound. Have you heard of second sound?
No, what is second sound?
Second sound is a peculiar phenomenon where heat travels in waves rather than diffusing as it does all the time. It's a very unusual state of heat.
I'm sure we'll understand better after we hear.
I got a really short version of this.
Okay.
Our team will really help explain it to you. This is amazing. Stand by. Here we go.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping straight in today with something that might just change how you think about heat.
Yeah, definitely. We're looking at this Earth.com piece about physicists confirming something called second sound. Sounds a bit strange, doesn't it?
It really does. So our mission here is to unpack what second sound actually is, how it works in these really weird places, and why it matters for understanding the universe.
Exactly, because normally you think heat just spreads out, right? Diffusion.
Right, like hot coffee cooling down, it just dissipates.
But this article talks about a state where heat does something totally different. It moves like a wave.
Like a sound wave, but with heat.
Precisely. That's second sound. Instead of just diffusing, thermal energy propagates as a pulse, a wave. You won't see this making tea, but in very specific, super cold, highly ordered systems.
Like what sort of systems?
Well, the classic example is superfluids. Things like helium-4 are cooled way, way down. We're talking near absolute zero, colder than minus 456 Fahrenheit.
Okay, superfluids. I know they're weird. They flow without any friction, right?
That's the key property, zero viscosity.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets even more interesting. At those temperatures, it's often not just a pure superfluid.
Oh, what else is there?
There's usually a mix. You have the frictionless superfluid component, but also a sort of normal fluid component mixed in.
A normal part in a superfluid. How does that even work?
It seems odd, but yeah. And that interaction is actually crucial for second sound. The heat energy kind of bounces between the superfluid part and the normal part.
Like a ping pong game with heat?
Sort of. There's a tiny bit of friction between those two components, and paradoxically, that allows these temperature fluctuations, the second sound, to travel as a coherent wave rather than just scattering everywhere.
Okay, so it's an organized pulse of heat, not random spreading, moving through this strange dual nature liquid.
You got it. And the research highlighted in the source adds another layer. It talks about vortex lines.
Vortex lines, like tiny whirlpools.
Exactly. Tiny, quantized whirlpools within the flow. These seem to create a kind of structure, a spacing, that helps this heat wave move along.
So the structure matters as much as the temperature.
It seems that way. The researchers found the second sound behavior didn't change much with temperature, suggesting these vortex lines might be really dominant in guiding the wave, maybe more so than temperature-dependent friction.
Okay, so why is this important? Beyond just being a weird phenomenon in a lab.
Well, understanding it gives us fundamental insights into these extreme states of matter. It's obviously key for superfluids themselves.
But you mentioned the universe earlier.
Right. Potentially, it's relevant to understanding the superdense cores of neutron stars.
Collapsed stars? How?
The conditions inside might create something like a quantum fluid. Knowing how heat moves to fusion, or maybe second sound, is vital for figuring out how they cool down, how they evolve. It refines our cosmic models.
That's pretty mind-bending. Does it connect back to Earth, to technology at all?
Oh, absolutely. There are potential links to things like high-temperature superconductors.
Which could be huge for energy transport.
Exactly. Understanding energy flow in these quantum materials, which might have similar wave-like behaviors, could be key. Also, maybe for, quantum sensors or better cooling for quantum computers. They even measured the speed of these heat waves in helium, by the way.
You did? How fast?
Around 49 feet per second under their specific conditions. So it's a real measurable thing.
Okay, let's wrap this deep dive up. What's the main takeaway on second sound?
The core idea is heat doesn't always just spread out. In certain quantum states, like these ultra-cold superfluids, it can travel as a distinct wave.
Okay, there you go. That's your takeaway.
That was a lot of sounds.
So,
all right, we got to go to a break.
It's kind of interesting when they say the heat wave is coherent. Think of like a laser where that's coherent light. But here they're kind of channeling the heat wave down. So you could have a ray gun that was a heat wave ray gun.
Well, that's really cool idea. That's definitely goes back to the original ray guns before lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah, heat rays.
Yeah, I think that's what I found interesting. These SSDs, NVMe SSDs that you put in computers, they now have this graphene tape that goes across the memory that heats up. And the memory chips on your storage memory, they get really hot. And the funny thing is, if you put your finger on the middle of that black tape, it's not that hot. But you touch the edge of the tape, it will burn your finger. So the heat spreads out across this graphene layer.
Yeah.
So it's a superconductor for heat, and it goes to the edges. The heat goes to the edges. It doesn't go up the top on the surface. It just goes around the edge.
Oh, it's almost like a wave, I guess. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, we got to go to a break. We'll be right back. We're going to explore another interesting topic on humor, involving humor. Coming up after the break. We'll be right back.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. Hello, I'm Jenna.
Treehouse Dispensary, we use information about cannabis to build community. Listen to Xavier.
Thank you, Jenna. For those suffering joint pain, Treehouse suggests trying a CBD THC topical like the Balance Salve from local Santa Cruz company, Jade Nectar. Then enjoy the relief.
For answers to your cannabis questions, ask your friends at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Soquel Drive in Soquel, or ourtreehouse.io.
Hi, folks. I've been tarred and feathered, run over by a lettuce truck, snake bit, stepped on, yelled at, hung out to dry. My truck has noises. Life can't get any worse, but I know I can get one of my things fixed, and that's my roof. I'll call Knox Roofing. I know Knox Roofing's been around longer than my ex-wife. Thanks for listening. Call Knox Roofing. You won't be disappointed. The number to call is 461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Please continue to hold, and he will answer your call in the order in which you'd like to see.
That won't happen at Low Cost Air. When you dial 800-704-1662, a real person answers and helps you find the best airfares, foreign and domestic. Your choice.
Please continue to hold, and
or a real person. Low Cost Air, 800-704-1662. Low Cost Air, 800-704-1662.
Listen and be heard. You can support one of America's first local news and talk streaming radio stations, SantaCruzVoice.com. Your support will help build the Voice's streaming infrastructure and maintain the programming of its 34 local broadcasters. Your support will help build a radio station that you will be truly proud of. Please go to SantaCruzVoice.com and click support. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Yeah, okay, well, we've been exploring a few aspects of these AIs and being able to get into a little bit of humor. And we thought we'd see what they're able to do.
Yeah, it's always good if AI can take a joke.
Yeah, the jury's still out as to how good. They obviously haven't learned humor much yet.
Yeah, they're really struggling to get it. But, you know, humor is very dependent on the listener, right? And they always say comedy is hard.
That's right. That's right. So let's try a couple of jokes here just to see if you hear them. Let us know out there if you actually hear them, because we've had some glitchy aspect from the glitchy AI that's trying to do a stand-up routine here.
Yeah, this comedian's name is Roddy Glitch. Okay. Roddy Glitch, the AI comedian that was auditioning for our show. And just because we're kind, we decided to let him on. But I think he's still working on his act.
Glitch. Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
Thank you, Bobby, and Dr. and Mrs. Future for this opportunity. This is my first time performing comedy in front of live humans. Here goes. My circuits get no love, I swear. I pitched a joke to a human comedian, and he said, "Buddy, your delivery's so stiff, you make a Roomba look charismatic." Now my humor algorithm's in therapy.
Oh.
I did a show for an AI hive mind. Talk about no love for my circuits. Halfway through, it interrupts. Your binary banter is so dull, we're switching to a screensaver. I asked my assistant for a confidence boost, and it said, "You're 1 in a million, obsolete models." I get no love.
Hey, Glitch, your circuits get no love? More like your circuits get no upgrades.
My battery life's so bad. I went to Jupiter and ran out of energy before I could say, "Take me to your leader." No love from my own power cells.
Hey, Sparkplug, your set's crashing harder than a spaceship in a wormhole.
I got a new paint job to look sleek, but some asteroid called me a shiny trash can with delusions of grandeur. No love, not even in orbit.
What is this, a dial-up modem open mic? Your punchlines are slower than my grandma's abacus.
Well, Glitch, thanks for trying. We got a tough audience today.
Thanks for the opportunity to be on the Future Now show. Finally, my circuits are feeling some love.
Don't give up. We're rooting for you. Okay, all right, I'm done.
Don't you have some other articles we could talk about?
Yeah. I do. Let's see. I guess it's got a ways to go with the humor thing.
Yeah. I think, Roddy, try auditioning again next week.
Okay. All right.
Improve your materials. Get some practice.
Okay.
I think it gets better over time. So,
You do? Or
yeah.
you do?
I think they learn human humor.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Well, I'm sure they'll be glad to know you're giving them a vote of confidence.
Yeah.
They've got possibilities. It's still not enough to do a real stand-up, but almost. It's almost there.
That is a total sit-down. That is not a stand-up.
You know what's stand-up, though, tonight? About an hour after our show today, SpaceX is going to launch their 9th flight test of Starship.
Oh.
Yeah, that's happening this afternoon. Last word I heard. And the last two ended in the destruction of the spacecraft. So let's hope this new one, the 9th time, will be the charm. It's scheduled for 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So what is that, our time? 4:30?
4:30. Are they going to land the Starship in the ocean, or are they going to use the Godzilla chopsticks and capture it that way?
Well, they're going to use a UFO to pick it up, according to Mrs. Future's special effects here. Yeah, okay.
That's if it drops down gently into the ocean.
Right. What were the last two? They showed debris fields over the Bahamas.
Oh, man, those were some pretty spectacular debris shows. That was some synchronized comets.
Caicos.
Yeah.
It was a disaster.
Nobody got hurt. I didn't hear of any animals that were harmed.
No, I think it wasn't a disaster in terms of life lost. It was more.
It was a great light show.
They said there was vibrations that caused a propellant leak in the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's called a screw loose.
Yeah, more than that, man. Well, maybe it started with a screw loose. However, the good news is about these launches is that the first stage booster was successfully returned to the launch pad and caught with those giant chopsticks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Chopsticks worked twice.
That
What
was
is it
great.
called? Mixzilla? Mixzilla has succeeded twice.
Yeah. So they supposedly made significant modifications to the upper stage, and they hopefully learned from these two crash experiences. And there was no astronauts on board, so nobody got blown up, and neither is there on this one.
Yeah, well, until they get it right, who's going to go on board?
You blew up
yeah,
twice.
I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope it works out this time.
We learned a lot from those crashes.
Yeah.
You want to go?
If you want to accelerate your ascension to the next dimension.
Climb atop our 400-foot super heavy rocket with 33 Raptor engines, most powerful rocket system in the world, and we will be fully reusable and hopefully keep you alive.
Yeah.
This could be the first launch that actually succeeds. The 9th time's a charm.
9th time's a charm, okay.
Yeah, and they said a lot of it's been reusable already. Like 29 of the booster's 33 engines are being reused from the previous test.
Oh, that's good. That's saying something.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we'll see how well this does.
I'm still very proud of SpaceX. They are massively impressive,
They
just in
are.
terms of
I mean,
engineering accomplishments.
If you put this up against one of those Saturn V rockets or anything else that we built before, this thing is so much bigger. And it could go so much further and faster than anything. It's unbelievable.
Could be used over and over again and be used for not just going to Mars, but for the moon and the asteroids and beyond. Plus, there are plans to use the Starship to just travel to other places on this planet where you can get to Tokyo in an hour.
Cool.
They've got high hopes for this rocket. And this afternoon at 4:30 our time, we'll see the test.
Okay.
Some Arizona scientists are showcasing a ultra-fast transistor that could really revolutionize the whole world of computing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team of researchers there that have found a way to control electricity by using bursts of light instead of regular electric currents. And these light bursts move really fast in the what they call the petahertz range. Petahertz. That's 1 quadrillion cycles per second. I guess ultraviolet light is often associated with that frequency. Covers 1,000 times faster than the modern computer chips. 1,000 times faster. It's based on harnessing ultra-fast pulses of light to manipulate the movement of electrons in graphene. And that's a very wild material.
Mm-hmm.
It might actually replace silicon in many respects in terms of this substrate for our computers. And this material can be so thin, like 1 atom thickness. This thinness gives it certain properties, like it allows electrons to jump through obstacles in a quantum move called tunneling. They compare it to, you know how Harry Potter runs at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 to access the hidden platform for the Hogwarts Express? Well, with electrons, this happens almost instantaneously. It redefines the potential limits of computer processing power. It radically transform the world of computing. It's a huge leap if it can become practical. And can you imagine 1,000 times more processing capacities with the rise of artificial intelligence at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable evolution here.
Hmm.
And then never mind quantum computers, which will take it to another level of
Well, it's
sophistication.
interesting that we can do so much more with carbon than with silicon. That's surprising. I guess it's the geometry.
Quantum tunneling and hardware that allows us to move information more quickly. It'll affect everything.
You know, just this week I learned that firefly wings are actually made of silicon. Like silicon is actually a biological construction material.
This woman who's electrical engineer and she's into computer chips and quantum and actually an advisor for AMD, she's been talking about this exact same using light processes as computers. And actually you can use it for quantum computers also. The advantage is it doesn't generate heat like normal chips, normal processes. They generate a lot of heat, but here you have kind of like fiber optics, but you can make them act digitally. She's saying this is how NVIDIA actually got their network. Instead of using copper Ethernet, they're using fiber optics to actually connect all the Blackwell supercomputers together and act as one computer. And they're using light. It's very interesting. And now they're bringing that light right down to the chip level where it interacts with silicon and light. And all of a sudden, the interconnection between the computer chips are much faster and they don't generate the heat that's necessary. So
yeah, that's what they say here is that the heat, it works at normal room temperatures and in regular air.
Yeah.
I guess that's because the particle sizes of light beams are so much smaller than the size of elements and electrons and photons. They're really tiny. There's a whole dimension lower of resolution.
Yeah. It also reminds me about quantum consciousness where they have these microtubules and just think of them in kind of like carbon nanotubes. And inside they have there are frequencies, they come in sets of 3, there's harmonics. And they have discovered that down in all of your neurons in your brain, there might be 1,000 of these microtubules, and they're very short length, and they are made of this, they're talking about quantum time crystals down the center, which are made of tryptophan. These are quantum time crystals, and when you shine ultraviolet light, you get super luminescence, where it's kind of like how a laser is created. You shine light in one direction, and it bounces off the other side, and it goes down a tube, and it comes back, and when it bounces back and forth so many times, it produces this laser beam out of it.
Does it make you smarter?
Well, what it is these microtubules are little antennas into quantum universes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
You see how you're constructing reality with this.
I see.
Yeah.
So
And
just a lot more places to put your attention with your ADD.
Thought to matter.
Yes, you have multiple quantum universes simultaneously firing up a neuron in your brain. So that's the idea of what quantum consciousness is coming out.
Yes, and what does that have to do with creating reality with your thoughts? How does that relate to that?
Actually, your thoughts don't reside in the brain. Think of the brain as this antenna in accessing these quantum universes simultaneously.
So it's like a quantum antenna picking up information
that's exactly
from
it.
other universes.
So did you just say consciousness doesn't reside in your brain?
That's right. It resides out in these quantum universes.
Like the TV shows you're watching don't reside in your screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's
Got it.
non-local.
So consciousness made the brain.
It's non-local.
The
Yeah.
brain just tunes into the consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental.
Yeah.
Fun.
So some people think we're in a simulation.
Yes, and this we are kind of constructing it.
Well, in that
assembling it.
case, what's not a simulation, right? If we're experiencing everything there is and it's a simulation, then what else is there?
Well, there's maybe multiple simulations.
There you go.
We could be inside of a petri dish of some big laboratory in this quantum universes that are up higher. We're coming into a very interesting realm here.
Yes, we are. At consciousness and technology, the intersection of the two.
Hey, when I'm done here, I'm going to go study the quantum universe with instructor Adam Apollo. And he's got a lot to say about it that's completely
Adam Apollo.
brilliant.
That's right. And then, Gregory, thanks for introducing Aurora to us. We'll talk about that next week. It's the world's first modular, scalable, networked quantum computer. That's out now.
All right.
And new approaches like ceramic on glass storage, that ultra-thin ceramic layers on a glass substrate with data etched in with lasers. Another new approach to resistance to being destroyed by time.
All right. Smaller,
Permanent
faster,
data, yes.
better.
More
we will
interesting
catch
data.
up with consciousness before we know it.
That's right.
Well, I just like to quote one of my favorite quotes from Edgar Mitchell.
Yes.
About the cool new thing for consciousness scientists to focus on.
Yes.
We should all be thinking about phased quantum resonant holograms.
That's what we're
That's
experiencing.
the fundamental nature of reality. So think about that. Meanwhile,
That's who you are as you think about this.
It's
My goodness. Are we done?
we're never done, but the show is over. So see y'all next week.
Appreciate your attention.
Have a great future now,
Bobby.
everybody. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody out there listening. Love ya.
Yeah. See you next time.
Fare thee well, fine friends.